Your meek personality, not a bad thing, is the only reason Vegan Gains didn't rage at you just now. With most other people, he would have gone nuts. You're very good at not making enemies. Oh, cool. Okay, that's good. I don't like to. I don't like to make enemies. I like to make vegans. Let's see. I'd still consider that a reductio in your view. Only refuse to intervene outside of society. Yeah, yeah, we can talk about that. He said you are insane. You think it's moral to kill a human baby for optimal health? Insane. Do I think it's moral? It's definitely not moral. That's something that me and Mr. Gaines agreed on. Is that there are actions that are immoral that might be like reasonable to do or acceptable to do, or it could be put into law. Um, and yeah, so yeah, but no, I don't think we should eat babies. Vegan gains, you mentioned. Okay, I'm down. Okay, let's see. Invite. Copy. I don't know if this will work here, but I'm going to put this here. And this link is for Sir Paradigm Shift. If that link works, that's great. If not, you might have to copy and paste it into the bar. But yeah, come on here and we can chat for a sec. I do have to go pretty soon, but we can do a short chat and then we can set up a future one. Contrarian 420 says, focusing on these extreme and unrealistic scenarios will keep veganism fringe. Focus on what's 100% of people healthiest. No, I'm with you. The thing is, I think it's nice to talk about these philosophical ideas. I don't know. I like Vegan Gains. He's a good guy to talk to. So I think it's, so I think it's good to talk to him. Okay, so Paradigm Shift's here. I'm going to switch over to him in a second. But Contrarian 420, I definitely agree that we should focus on other things. When I talk to people that aren't vegan, I focus on such minimal things like stop eating cake and hot dogs, not even focusing on going full vegan. So when I talk about extreme stuff like this, it's just philosophical conversations with fellow vegans. Okay, here we go. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
Right on. Not too shabby. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna get off here in a little bit because right before the Vegan Gains chat, I was in the middle of making homemade seitan. Have you ever made that before?
Nah, I haven't. I haven't even tried
Okay.
it from the store, to be honest.
Oh, gotcha. A friend
Yeah, I
sent
eat
me a
tofu all the
recipe,
time
but
though.
oh, cool. Yeah, it's similar to that. But
Work.
yeah, anyways, do you so if you watched all of what just happened, do you have any thoughts, like good arguments about the predator element that Vegan Gains didn't say?
I'm not sure if I have anything to contribute that Vegan Gains didn't say, but I am curious. Like, why does, for example, like if you were a predator and you didn't want to die, why is that valuable to you in that situation as opposed to any other situation where there's a moral harm occurring and the individual uh, doesn't want to have intervention occur, whether it's it causes their death or not.
Yeah. So do you mean like if I was in the place of the zebra and I'd want somebody to intervene?
No, I'm saying like let's like in like I'm assuming that and maybe this is a wrong assumption, but I'm assuming that in the vast majority of moral situations, if the one that's inflicting the harm upon the victim doesn't wish for an intervention to happen, whether that entails their death or not,
Mm-hmm.
then why should that matter more than the rights of the victim that's being violated?
Wait, oh, gotcha. Um, I don't know if I would think if it should matter more if it wasn't for the fact that I can imagine myself in the situation and me needing it for survival. So I want to survive. Like I don't know about you, but like right now, if I was told if there was a button next to you and you were told by some god thing that you're gonna have to eat animals for the rest of your life, or else you're gonna die tomorrow, and you could just press this button and you're just gonna fall over dead or whatever. Like, would you be able to choose to do the moral thing by choosing to actually end your life? I don't think I could do it.
Well, I think besides the point, like whether I was able to press that button or not, the intervention itself, I think, would be justified, and I don't see how it wouldn't be. And
Mm.
it's kind of surprising to me that you would consider the preferences of the perpetrator over the preferences of the victim.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, I mean, I would have to factor it somewhat in to at least my species. So let's say that we found out that you can't get B12 from supplements. Let's say the supplements don't work anymore, and that you have to eat. Let's say you have to eat one fish a month to get B12, and that if you don't, there's a good chance that you're going to have some brain issues. If we say that, okay, I'm going to eat that fish because I'm willing to eat one fish a month to have my brain levels be good, but then you could see me and think he killed a fish for his brain, I should care about the victim fish, especially because there'll be one a month, so that's 12 a year fish. So I'm going to kill reasonable vegan. My name's
Yeah,
Carson, by the way.
sure. I'm
So I
rocking.
don't want that. I don't want you. I don't want somebody to kill me. So obviously it's different. I care less when it doesn't involve me. So killing zebras killing lions or letting zebras go. It's kind of I don't care too much because it's not me. It's not my loved ones. But I want to be willing to look at the fact of what if it is me. Like I think we'll be able to be perfectly healthy and vegan. I've been vegan 8 years. My daughter's almost 7, and she was born vegan. I know people that have been vegan 50 years. I think the optimal health diet for humans is something like a whole food healthy vegan diet with some supplements like B12. But if that weren't the case, if we had to consume 1% of our diet from animals, or we'd have like 50% health instead of 100%, I would be totally fine with eating those animals just like I would eat a chicken on an island to survive. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't want somebody to look at these victims and go, I'm going to kill Carson, reasonable vegan.
I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from, except again, I'm not seeing like why the preferences of the perpetrator should be put above the preferences of the victim. Because in my eyes, there's rights that are being violated in the case of the victim, and if you are like on my moral system, if you were to violate the right of somebody else in order to prevent a right being violated, as long as the weight of the right being violated isn't more weighty than the actual rights violation that's occurring. So, for example, like I wouldn't take away someone's right to vote just to stop someone from pinching somebody, but I
Mm.
would, be willing to use lethal force on somebody in order to protect somebody that was perpetrating lethal force upon someone else, because the weights would be equal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I just can't quite figure out what to do about a hypothetical where a human needed some small amount of animals because it would be the victim. If fish, I think I care less about fish than I do about like say pigs, and I care less about insects than fish. But so let's take a pig. Like pigs are cute. Pigs are sentient. They're smart. But I care more about humans than pigs. I don't know how much more, but if a human needed to eat some pig to survive, I don't think I could care about the victim when it comes to the life or death. Similar to we have these houses we live in. I'm guessing you're in a house right now. I don't want to cut down a tree that a squirrel or a bird's going to live in to make my shelter, but I need shelter to survive. I need drinks and I need water. I need food. And so we do what we do to be at our optimal health. That's why we're not just living outside on the street. Well, there wouldn't even be a street. That's why we're not living out in the woods, because we're willing to choose ourselves over some things in nature. Same things with I don't care too much about crop deaths when it comes to insects, but we're willing to kill these sentient insects because we need this food to survive. So we got to, in my mind, what we vegans do is do as little harm as possible to get as much optimal health as possible. And so, what about those victims?
I don't believe that all harm is created equal. Like I was
Okay.
saying before, like what I value the most is the rights violations that are occurring. So, like for example, in a field where maybe some mice or some gophers or something get torn up inside the thresher as it goes across the fields and tears up the land, right? Like I wouldn't necessarily consider that a rights violation, right? Because it's a consequential death. It's a death that occurs as a consequence of the action that you were taking, but it's like the goal isn't to kill somebody. And not on top of that, if somebody was like, for example, like if you took out the deaths and allowed the action to continue, then it wouldn't frustrate the goals of the action in any way. And so barring any reliable feasible way to avoid those deaths, I don't consider it wrong, in the same way that I wouldn't consider it wrong for example, humans to die in crop production, which they do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because as an incident, like we know there's going to be incidental deaths in construction, in agriculture, in all sorts of industries. And
Yeah.
we wouldn't necessarily consider those rights violations. And so I wouldn't necessarily consider crop deaths to be a rights violations. I'm not convinced that it is.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, go ahead.
Let me try to convince you otherwise. So for the human one, the humans are accepting of it, even if they're in a shitty situation, kind of like a prostitute doesn't want to be a prostitute, but they're accepting of it. A human might prefer to do some other job that doesn't have their life at risk, but they're choosing that job. They know the risk. The animal doesn't really know. It's kind of like a deer wandering into our man-made streets. They aren't complying to our situation. Like they don't know that they're going to get hit by a car. They're not agreeing to the situation. Same thing with the crop deaths. They're not agreeing to it. I agree with you. They're somewhat accidental, not rodenticide. We should actually switch over to that. But yeah, a tractor going through to get vegetables, if something's in the way, it's not too different from me walking down the street and not realizing I stepped on ants. Um,
or
but
or or a deer walking out in the road and getting hit by a car.
Well, we make the road, we make the car, we make it have its abilities it has, and we don't prevent lesser intelligent, or at least animals that can't understand what we've created, that can't reason with us and our inventions. We're not preventing them from getting there. I think it's an issue. But with the crop deaths, let's say that you could know, you could look into the future and you could say, okay, for the next 5 years, this is how much suffering and death will come from these crop deaths. So you know, it's not even just maybe there will be some crop death. What you're going to do is going to cause this amount of death. And let's say that the amount to feed yourself every day for 5 years is going to be like 50 units of suffering, and to kill some animals and eat them is going to be 10 units of suffering. And so let's say suffering and death for the units. Do you think that with the knowledge in advance of how much suffering and death, that it would be more moral and more vegan to do the thing that causes 10, no matter what it is?
No, I think again it boils back down to the rights violations, right?
You care
So
more
like
about
if
rights violations than you care about animal suffering and death if we magically knew the numbers?
it depends on the degree of suffering. It's not that I don't take suffering into consideration on my moral view. However, it is a rights-based view, and generally it would take a tremendous amount of suffering. Well, it depends on the right in question, of course, but like for example, murdering somebody, I would consider that to be a pretty high bar. So there would need to be a lot of suffering that would be entailed for me to consider murder to be an actual moral action, right? But if let's
Mm-hmm.
say you don't murder this dude right here who hasn't committed any, he's not a perpetrator of any crimes or whatever. It's just a regular person, you know. And so if not murdering them was to cause like maybe hundreds of thousands of people to suffer tremendously and be tortured, I would consider it probably wrong to not murder that person, right? So it's not that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not taking suffering into consideration, but in general, I do consider rights to come before suffering, but that's just because it, like, depending on the right, of course, but like with the more serious talks like we're having, it
Mm-hmm.
generally takes a lot of suffering for me to go, okay, that's enough suffering for me to, and if you do increase the weight of the suffering enough, then eventually I'm just going to have to concede and say, yeah, I would consider it moral to take the other action, right?
Is this suffering not part of a right? Like like I think I have a right, especially a legal one, and with animals we want to make legal rights, but there's a legal right for you to not make me suffer. That you would be violating my rights. So if I put out rodenticide, which is a different form of crop dust where you put out poison intentionally to entice rodents, so squirrels, rats, mice, to the poison, they eat it and then they die. That way they'll not eat the crops. And so they're going to die this slow, painful death. Putting out this poison to grow produce, which again, I just like to look at all sides. I'm very vegan, and I think we need to keep eating. I think it causes less harm to eat produce than it does to kill animals. But I think we do need to challenge ourselves on these things. So if you put out this poison, the rats and squirrels eat it and suffer and die. I think that's a rights violation.
It's a rights violation.
To put out poison, like how is it different to put out poison for rats to come up and eat versus putting out a sprinkler type thing that shoots out bullets for whenever deer come up to hang out near your produce that you're growing?
Well, I suppose it depends, but I mean, in a general sense, I wouldn't consider it a rights violation to protect food, right? That you need to in order to feed yourself, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's protecting property. That's it's similar to protecting your own life, right? Like it's
Okay.
almost like a form of self-defense.
So what if since I believe you and Vegan Gains maybe look at animals closer to equal with humans than I do, what if I knew that homeless people were coming up to eat the apples out of my field and I didn't want them to steal it, and for whatever reason I can't get the police to come or whatever, and so I either maybe I just set out all kinds of delicious type foods that your average homeless person would love, but I put poison in it, and it's not their food. So if they come to it, they're taking somebody else's food, and if they die from it, it's just because I put that there to make them not get my apples.
Yeah, I mean, like, barring, like, let's assuming that you had no other reliable way to get rid of these people from eating your crops, right? And you need those crops in order to feed yourself, right? Or, in a broader sense, we need the crops to feed the human race, right?
Yeah.
And so, in that case, like, I would consider it, yeah, morally justified to remove them by lethal force if that's what it took, right? Like, and I wouldn't consider that a rights violation because, again, you're protecting property, you're protecting your assets that you need in order to, feed yourself, or in a, like I said, in a broader sense, to feed the human race.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the problems. So with the human example, we could reason with them, so the police can say, "Hey, you can't go here, and if you do, we're putting you in jail." And then
Right.
they'd have to decide. But with the rats, the problem with calling it not a rights violation or them violating the humans' rights is that they have no idea. They again, I don't think there's a problem. Like, I think it's fine if humans want to protect their shelters because you need shelter to survive. If a rat's chewing up your foundation, preferably get them out humanely. Don't kill them. But if you kill them, it's fine because I think we do need to take care of ourselves. But rats have no idea what they're doing. So if we are going to kill them to protect our food and protect our houses, but if that causes more suffering than an alternative that would also kill animals, I guess I just don't the rights violation factoring in where you kill an animal that's unknowingly doing something and you cause 50 units of suffering versus you could kill other animals and let's say they are equal level of sentience and you could kill them and let's pretend they're equal nutrition. I don't think they are. It's probably unhealthy to eat animals, but let's say they have the same vitamins as apples and kale, and it's 10 units. I like part of me, all else equal, wants to care about rights violations. But if it comes down to killing and making something suffer, when animals in neither case, an animal is intentionally doing anything wrong. A rat's just trying to eat some stuff, a cow or a deer is just trying to eat some stuff, and you can cause 10 units of harm and suffering and death, or 50 units of harm and suffering and death.
Okay, but like where like I don't see how this is analogous per se. Like so like when you're giving the two situations, like you're saying this one is 50 units and this one is 10 units, like I don't see how that is analogous to the situation. Like I don't see how that is analogous to the situation with the predators, right? Because we don't
Um,
actually know.
Yeah, it's not exactly. Just because we kind of switched over to talking about crop deaths, it's something that
Yeah.
I think is fascinating to look at in a hypothetical where crop deaths cause more harm and suffering than killing animals. And also, that
Hmm.
hypothetical has to include that it's equal nutrition. Um,
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting and worth looking at, and I think us vegans need to stop ignoring the crop death argument, and we just need to embrace it and learn more about it. But I don't know if I actually meant to connect that to the predator
Okay, no worries. Well, I mean, then
predator.
my position again just remains the same with respect to the crop deaths. I'm just at this point still not convinced that it's not a rights violation. And like I kind of explained in the hypothetical with the homeless people or whatever, I do hold that consistently with my view for humans, right? Like,
Mhm.
in my eyes, I don't consider it a rights violation if you're protecting your property or you're protecting your own person or you're protecting somebody else's person, right?
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, just to test your level of care for species, like I don't know if you value humans slightly more than other animals, but if there's
Totally.
like a fire with a oh okay, so a fire with a person and a dog, as long as you don't know the dog well, you save the person.
Oh, I would save the person anyways, unless it was maybe like a really old person and it was a really young dog or something.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It has to be a vegan dog. Um,
There you go.
but yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, cool. Because some people don't like Vegan Gain said he would starve himself before eating before eating animals. And I can't remember. Did you say the same? I'm getting the answers mixed up a little bit. Um,
I
if
don't know
you
if I
were a
would choose
carnivore,
starvation. I might just choose a different form of death that was quicker and easier. But yeah, I probably if I had to kill animals to survive, I wouldn't consider that, morally justified on my part.
not morally
Although,
justified,
but
but you wouldn't do it anyways.
well, that depends. It depends on if we're talking about herbivores or we're talking about predators. Because if I have to kill animals to survive, I wouldn't consider it a problem to go and kill predators that are killing herbivores and then to
Hmm.
eat them instead, right? Like I wouldn't consider
Yeah.
that a rights violation.
Yeah, but to what level do you value a human over other animals? So, like, let's say it was something like a cow. Um, let's say a deer, because I like to imagine that if we were ever forced to eat animals, it wouldn't be in a factory farm setting, and we might have to go hunting. So, a deer, um, you would save a human before you'd save a deer in a fire.
Yeah.
But how much difference is there? Because if you would save a human before the deer, I feel like maybe it would be reasonable. And I think I've heard hunters say they could feed themselves for about a year on a deer. That probably is outrageous, but maybe a
Yeah.
year on a deer plus vegetation or whatever. Anyways, um, if you could kill it quickly and put it out of its misery, which again, I'm not in favor of. I don't think we should kill animals, but I guess
Yeah.
I just value humans so much more because I have a will to live. I'm really excited for in a couple weeks. I get to see the new Flash movie, and on the same day, I get to see the new Wes Anderson movie and the new Pixar movie. They all come out
Yeah.
the same day, so I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this. And I know what existing is, and I'm a human, so I have this ability to rationalize, and I love animals, and they should not be harmed. That's for sure, and I'm pretty sure they should not be killed. But I think I would quickly end them if that meant protecting humans that have this want for a future when I have no reason to think whatsoever that an animal has a want for the future. If I had to make them suffer to eat them, I might just click a button and let myself die because I don't want to make things suffer. But something that doesn't want to suffer, don't make it suffer. But if it doesn't care about existing, give it the benefit of the doubt, let it exist. But if it's between your own life and theirs, I say snap it out like Thanos.
Yeah, sure. Like, and this is again, if you're saying if it's your life or theirs, you're saying it's hypothetical. Like so you're saying that like you value humans so much more that even if it is a rights violation to kill and eat the other animal, if it was required to survive, you would not consider that to be morally impermissible. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, I also like vegan gains. I find that to be a little bit insane.
okay. No, that's fine. I guess I just I try to be honest and I recognize
Yeah.
Like, I philosophize about all these things so much that I've realized, okay, I care more about myself than probably anybody, anything. I want to survive and I want to be as healthy as possible and live forever. And aside from that, like, I would probably put my life on the line to save my kids and my wife and some other family members. And so I have people that I care about the most, and I would let like a million strangers die to save my loved ones. So it's a bummer. It is what it is. I don't want people to lose their lives or lose their rights. But I care about these things. And outside of that, once all that's covered, then I think anything that is sentient should not be forced to live anywhere. They should not be harmed. They should not suffer. They should not die. But if I needed to protect me and the loved ones, I just like I don't I think it's built in us. We have evolved to survive. That even if we want to be as noble as maybe you and Vegan Gains are and sacrifice ourselves, I just don't think we would. I think we would do anything to survive, just like any other animal.
Well, even if that's the case, again, like I'm not seeing how that makes it. Well, let me double check. Like, do you actually consider it morally unjustified, on your view, to kill a predator in order to protect the prey?
Morally unjustified. Really, the only thing putting me there is that I can put myself in the place of the predator, and I would not want to die. Um, I wish I had a better answer than that, and I don't.
That sounds like
So,
a yes. Would that be a yes?
um, Well, that aside, just stepping back, just looking at there's a zebra there, there's a lion there. The zebra wants to kill the lion to eat it. The lion wants to kill the zebra to eat it. The zebra's doing nothing wrong. Like a big part of me wants to kill the lion. If the zebra's going to suffer in any way, and I could make the zebra not suffer, I could shoot the zebra to make it out of its misery, and then the lion kills it and eats it. I guess I don't have any connection to either of them. I guess I would have a want and a wish that all animals were herbivores. That would be nice, but that's not how it is. Um, and if all animals except one type were herbivores, and humans didn't even think of eating animals, I might like talk to the rest of my human buddies and go, "Hey, maybe we should wipe these guys out. They're pretty messed up." So yeah, the only thing getting in my way is the knowledge that what if I was a carnivore? And so it's kind of like, what is it, the Rawlsian idea of politics of set up a society where you could be any place in it. You might be the poorest person or the richest person. What's the best society, not knowing where you'll land? I guess I look at like, if you're going to wipe something out for doing something, I want to make sure they're not getting wiped out for something I would do. And that's probably not reasonable. I'll probably get talked out of it, but it's just what I landed on about 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah, true, true. Well, well, I could, I'll definitely think about that a little more to see if I can come up with something that I think is going to convince you,
yeah.
right? But I still didn't appreciate an answer to my question there. So, like, do you or do you not consider it morally unjustified to kill a predator in order to save the prey?
Morally unjustified. I would consider it. Well,
Or
I consider it immoral for the lion to kill the zebra even without knowledge. So there's that. I think an immoral act is immoral no matter what, whether there's intent or not. So the immoral act's happening. I can see why it's happening. I'd consider it an acceptable act because it is acting on instinct, but it's immoral. Would it be immoral to shoot it? Would it be immoral to shoot it? I don't know. That's the thing. I
you're
would have to.
agnostic?
Yeah, like if I was going to kill something purely for survival, just to eat it, and somebody killed me, would I think that they did an immoral thing killing me? I can see both sides. I can see them wanting to defend the thing I was about to kill, and I could see them wanting to not kill me because I'm just acting on instinct. So, yeah, I'd have to say I'm agnostic on this for now. And I feel so torn that even if I land on either side, I don't feel like it's reasonable to not feel torn for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, yeah.
I mean, for me, like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, when I first heard the predator killing argument, I was like, I had the immediate like instinct that like, no, that's not right. Like, we can't be shooting other animals that are just trying to live their lives. But after thinking about it longer and longer, I just can't come up with a good enough reason to put to basically I, the way that Avi set it up with name the trait, I couldn't come up with any traits as far as like that to me that didn't sound absolutely insane when I would end up with the hypothetical that goes after the trait. And so
Mm,
because of that, I just slowly but surely came around to the predator killing argument. And
yeah.
now I do not consider it morally wrong to shoot predators in order to kill or to kill predators in order to protect prey. And in fact, I'm leaning towards the fact that it's a moral good. Barring any ecological circumstances or whatever that might bring about more rights violations or
Mm.
more suffering
Well, let
than
me push you a little
would
bit
be
on that.
entailed.
Yeah, let me.
Sure.
I gotta hop off here in a sec, but I want to push you a little bit on that. I know Gaines says as long as it's not causing harm to the ecosystem, like you just said. I'm not sure if Avi says that as well, but I hope he doesn't, because similar to if you're protecting your own crops, it's not a rights violation to set out the poison for the rats. If you're protecting the zebras and killing off the predators, even if it messes with the ecosystem and more things end up dying, they're still dying on accident as a outcome of you doing a good act. If you go and kill all these predators, maybe it'll work out. I mean, we used to have dinosaurs, and now there's no dinosaurs. Things can survive without other things. But yes, let's say you wipe out every single predator there is, and who knows if any animals can keep surviving. But let's say at very least like 50% of the animals die off because overpopulation, because the predators aren't taking them out, whatever. Why would you view that as a rights violation if all you did was take out the predators and the rest was just things falling into place?
Well, the question is what happens after the predators are killed? Is there even more rights violations than would have occurred had the predators survived? Because then I wouldn't consider it a moral act to kill the predator, right? And so
Well,
it's kind of
how's it a rights violation? Because I thought you were viewing the idea of like if you leave poison out and the rats get it, you didn't want to kill the rats. The poison's just there in case the rats happen to come. So anything that happens after the predators die, you're not doing that to them. So are you violating their rights by removing their predators, or you're just
well,
saying that nature now is violating their rights?
no, this is just a question of how many rights are being violated in the environment, right? So like depending on how the environment changes, there could be
Mm,
more rights violations and more suffering. And so suffering is also considered, although again, it's not the primary thing that I look at. It's not the first thing that I'm looking at usually, unless it happens to be exceptional. Goes above my
mm,
bar as a threshold. I don't really like commit to threshold deontology, but so far it
mm.
is the normative theory that most closely captures my values. I'm not sure if it
Gotcha.
completely captures them, to be quite frank. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but yeah,
let me just try to paint this a little better. So you wipe out the predators, um, and then the animals overpopulate, and then because they're overpopulated, nature wants to thin them out so they get diseases and die off. It's that dumb argument you hear hunters say: we need to hunt the deer because if we don't, they'll overpopulate and get disease and die. And it's like that's just part of nature. That's what would happen if humans didn't exist. So you don't need to go hunt them. But if because you killed lions, zebras overpopulated, and then some of them got diseases and died off, and they were suffering, you could say, yeah, it sucks they're suffering, and the thing I did is part of the domino effect. But I don't, if you're not going to consider putting out poison to stop rats, I don't think killing zebras, at least with the poison to stop rats, you're just trying to protect your own food. With the zebra thing, you're killing a murderer, an animal murderer, protecting
yeah.
another animal. So the outcome logically shouldn't matter if you don't care about the outcome of putting out the poison for rats.
I don't see how that follows. Could you maybe you
because
could
you're
unpack that for me?
because you are not because I thought what you were claiming is you don't care about you would rather not kill a cow even if it caused less suffering than letting rats die from the poison they get because one's
D-
a direct rights violation. So if
depending on the amount of suffering.
okay, so
Because
the
remember, I told you I do have a threshold where if the suffering is great enough, then it would convince me that the action would be wrong. I think I gave you an example
okay.
with murdering someone and having 100,000 people suffer tremendously.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I was trying to figure out that if how even though the reason it happened was you killed the predators, you're not actually making them overpopulate. You're not making them suffer from their diseases they got from overpopulation. Okay.
That's
Yeah,
correct,
I
but
get you.
I would consider it more of like let's say a management decision, right? Like there's this plot of land and I have the decisions of what actions I'm going to take. And depending on how those outcomes go, it could sway my reasoning as to whether or not that action is an appropriate action to take morally, right? So like,
Mm.
if the suffering of the zebras was just so great that it was like, way higher than the suffering that they would have had with the lions killing them. And if there was more rights being violated in that situation than even if the lions had been violating their rights, then like by all means, I would absolutely be like, well, no, it's not a moral action to take, and we shouldn't do that.
Well, let's put it in reverse then. Let's say in Australia, there's only prey, no predators. And everywhere else, there's the predator prey dynamic. So in Australia, what happens is there's let's say 100 species of animals and they're all prey and they all overpopulate, get disease, suffer, a bunch die, overpopulate, and they keep doing this cycle because they don't have prey. Would you say that even though you don't know what led to that, the moral thing to do, the management moral thing to do would be to take predators and put them there to essentially sacrifice enough animals to make the disease not happen anymore?
That's interesting. I like the way you set that up. Let me think about that for a moment.
Yeah, you're good. You can even think about this for a day or two, and then we can meet up again and talk. Because I do got to hop off here, but I love
True.
talking hypotheticals and coming up with things. And sometimes it's better to think for a little while than to get stuck on the spot and whatnot. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel you. Well,
ponder that one. I've never thought of it. I just came up with it now, so I'll think about it too. I don't know what I would do, but yeah, keep in touch.
cool.
Uh,
Sounds good.
Hopefully, I'll see you in the comments on my channel, but also on my channel in the About section is my email. Shoot me an email and we'll set up a talk in a few days or in a week.
Okay, awesome. We'll do. Sounds good.
All right. Yep. Take care, man.
Yeah, you have a great rest of your day or night or whatever.
Yep. See ya. All right. Cool talk. Oh man, I wish I had enough time. Why are we forcing a social contract with wild animals? Yeah, no, fair enough. Mindy, vegan atheist. Cool. I'm an atheist too. You should come on my channel and talk sometime. We're just getting into hypotheticals to, I don't know. I think it's kind of fun. I don't think it's ever going to be a realistic thing in any of our lifetimes that we would intervene with animals in the wild. I personally don't want to. I think all animals should just be in the wild doing their thing. And so, yeah. Why does this sound like conservatives just for we have live traps. Other species aren't murderers. This is like lions, though. I mean, it's not. Why are you trying to act like gods? Yeah, yeah. No. So right now, not to try to take the win and get your support here, but I'm not in favor of taking them out. But I do see the argument for it. I think it's worth analyzing. I think it's worth breaking down. I'm not sure what time you stepped into this talk, but if you're out in nature and you see a lion about to eat a zebra and you're just looking at those two, you're not going to look at any more. You have a gun. That zebra doing nothing wrong could get killed. It could take like a minute for it to like suffer and die. You could shoot the lion really quick and the lion would just be dead. Obviously, we wouldn't want to just narrow it down to something like that. But if you're just looking at those two cases, it's hard to view that as not the reasonable choice. And the only thing that makes me think otherwise is if I was a carnivore, a natural carnivore, I wouldn't want to be taken out in that same situation. But it's hard because there's a victim there that's not only going to die that did nothing wrong, but is going to suffer. So it's complicated, but I don't think this is a huge issue. I don't think it's a big thing we need to look at, but I think we should be accepting of knowing that some of us vegans that are into philosophy are going to break down these silly ideas. So